There are certain objects which, if in the hands of even the most ardent skeptic, may cause them to worry. I'm talking about objects said to be haunted or cursed, some linked to ancient legends, and others recently created in horrific events. Their common element is they cause death and derangement to those who possess them. In the small village of Bettyscombe is a manor house. Within the house is a mysterious human skull, which has been kept there for several centuries. They say it belongs to a 17th century slave who worked at the manor. He died young of tuberculosis, and on his deathbed, he swore that he wouldn't rest until his corpse was buried in the West Indies. But his master had him buried in a nearby cemetery. From that day onward, terrible screaming was heard coming from the cemetery. Before long, his corpse was exhumed. It's unknown what happens to his body, but the skull remains in the house, still said to be possessed by his restless spirit, and still said to be heard screaming on dark nights. In 1926, a large statue was installed in Maryland's Druid Ridge Cemetery. From day one, the statue was associated with dark forces. They said it was as if a small storm was always raging around the statue. Urban legend soon emerged that the statue was haunted by a ghost called Black Aggie. They told that anyone who slept beside the statue at night would see the ghosts of those buried in the cemetery. Black Aggie's eyes would glow red, and you would find yourself surrounded by countless ghosts. So many broke into the cemetery to visit Black Aggie that the statue was donated to a museum in 1957. In Sweden, there are many rune stones from ancient times still standing. In runic languages, they tell of Viking raids and important stories. One rune stone stands at an ancient grave. Being one of Sweden's oldest and most mysterious, there have been many attempts to remove it. One man used fire to weaken the stone so it could be pulled down. If he was familiar with runic languages, he would have known better. On the stone it reads, "I, master of the runes, conceal here runes of power, incessantly plagued by maleficence. Doomed to insidious death is he who breaks this stone." And so while the man was heating the stone, a gust of wind set fire to him and he was burned to death. Laura P. is an artist known for painting copies of famous photographs. 2 decades ago, she discovered a supposedly haunted photograph of a headless man beside a stagecoach. She never believed in the paranormal, but there was something about the photograph she found eerie and mysterious. Her painting was put on the wall of a nearby office building, but she was soon asked to remove it. Workers there were too scared of it to come into the office in the mornings. They claimed to have seen it moving. Laura took the painting to her own house and immediately heard loud banging noises at night. Objects mysteriously moved, and while around the painting, her dogs became distressed. In 1944, the Delhi purple sapphire was donated to London's Natural History Museum. As a beautiful and valuable gem, it was hard to understand why anyone would willingly donate it. But it soon became clear that bad fortune would fall on those who owned the sapphire. They say it was stolen from a Hindu temple in 1855 by a British colonel. He died soon after finding it, and the gem was passed down to several different people, all of which either had their lives ruined or mysteriously died. One man ordered his bank lock away the stone until 33 years after his death. His daughter eventually came to own the gem and donated it. It's unknown what her father suffered, but it convinced her the stone was cursed. The stone arrived with a letter encouraging whoever found it to cast it into the sea. In 1987, a married couple bought some bunk beds for their children. From that night, strange things began to happen. Their radio would turn itself on and off during the night. Before long, the children began seeing things that couldn't possibly exist. They saw visions of witches and raging fire. It got so bad a local pastor was asked to visit the house. He claimed to feel the presence of Satan. It had been 9 months since they found the beds at an old junk shop, and only after the beds were completely destroyed did their lives return to normal. Rudolph Valentino was a huge star of early silent film. He quickly rose to fame, but before long fell out of favor with producers and had a series of box office failures. While things were going well, he purchased a mysterious ring, which he claimed was cursed. He bragged to his friends of the cursed ring on his finger, but since he started wearing the ring, his career had declined, and he soon died at the young age of 31. His lover then took ownership of the ring, and her career in Hollywood immediately tanked. The ring was passed on to Russ Columbo, who was shot dead soon after. It was given to several others who also died. Many years later, a movie was made about Valentino. The actor playing him wore the ring and died after developing a blood disease just 10 days later. The cursed ring is now sealed away in a safety deposit box. Letter the Gypsy Doll is estimated to be over 200 years old. In 1972, it was discovered inside an abandoned building, which was rumored to be haunted. Its owner has since claimed the doll itself is haunted, possessed by the soul of the Romanian gypsy who created it. The owner claims the doll moves on its own, terrifies dogs, and that he's physically unable to get rid of it. He genuinely believes an evil spirit is trapped inside the doll, which prevents him from doing certain things.
He's not too attractive.
Ha! Got him!
Now owned by a museum, the Hope Diamond is of mysterious origin. It's said it was stolen from the eye of a Hindu statue in the 1600s, and then sold to a French merchant. Since then, it's been owned by countless people in several countries. According to legend, the Hindu goddess cursed the stone as revenge for its being stolen, and since then, death, disease, and ruin have plagued those who own it. There are too many victims of the curse to mention, so here are just some. Louis XVI. He was the French king who was overthrown and executed. Simon Mancharides. I don't know if I've pronounced his name right. He drove off the side of a cliff, taking his wife and child with him. James Todd. After only delivering the diamonds to a museum, he was in a car crash and his house burned down. This chair is permanently attached to a museum wall to stop anyone from sitting on it. They say anyone who does sit on the chair will meet an untimely death, just like the 63 people who already have. The chair belongs to the notorious murderer Thomas Busby. He was found guilty of murdering his father-in-law and given the death sentence, but he was allowed one final meal at his local pub. After the meal, he stood up and shouted, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit on my chair," and so the curse was born. So that's the end of this video. If you want to support this channel, you can do so simply by leaving a like. And if you want more content from me, I have a second channel where I do different videos about different things.